Well, I wrote this last night before Tesla reached 80, so I wasn't feeling bullish about the recent spike in the stock price. However, in the short term, perhaps the next 6 months or so, I am feeling pretty bullish about Tesla because it seems like all the negatives have already been priced in and the positives are still to come. Of course, there may be unknown negatives to come, but equally unknown positives like Tesla announcing the next new factory or Ford adopting Tesla FSD, just like when Hertz announced the deal that they would buy a large number of Teslas and the stock reached an all-time high. As a result, the negatives association, not very significant Berlin or Texas model, ramp, you could say that the Cybertruck is priced in, and perhaps it is from a fundamentals perspective, but perhaps not from an emotional perspective. The excitement and event like Cybertruck being delivered to customers for the first time will be insane and bound to be felt in the stock price. The media will also be over it admitting that Tesla are finally launching this long-awaited vehicle. Then perhaps, if Tesla show they do deliver despite such delays, then perhaps the same holds true for 4680s and FSD. Confidence in those sides of the business will grow and thus the PE ratio accordingly. There's never been a product this cool in the history of the world that has been launched and available to the public and on a mass scale, and we don't even know the specs yet. All we know is it's likely the specs and prices have changed quite a bit since the initial launch. It's been 3 years since then. We've seen a lot of inflation. And of course a waiting list close to 2 million orders along with general popularity and EVs increasing. The Model S plant changed specs after just a few months when they canceled the 500-mile range version, for example. And I don't think anyone believes Tesla are going to launch a Cybertruck with a 500-mile range version. Either if there ever is such a version, then it won't likely be for years as the batteries have a long way to come still. If there is just one version, I think it will be a dual motor with about 350 miles of range. If there's another, then a tri-motor with perhaps 400 miles of range. But personally, I think it's unlikely we see a 400-mile range version this early. My guess is the current cell density is going to be more about the mid-300s, which indicates that Tesla outperforms the Ford F-150 Lightning in terms of range. Sure, the Rivian has 400 miles of range, but is it really important considering that it costs about $200,000 to produce? Can you imagine paying that much to build a Tesla? I don't think Meridian will ever be much more than a niche brand, saved from going bankrupt or becoming an Amazon van company. Ford is mainstream, and that's what counts. The Cybertruck will undoubtedly have longer range at a lower cost and come equipped with a slew of other capabilities. Tesla's unbeatable ASIS for a start ensure the Lightning does offer a few other utilitarian features that the Cybertruck doesn't, but I don't think many people care that much compared to having an actual Cybertruck. We're seeing more and more Cybertrucks come out as production too. It is really going to happen, and fairly soon by the looks of it anyway. This will obviously stimulate the stock price. Then if we also include the Model 3 Highland likely out perhaps as early as next month, possibly before the Cybertruck, then if the rumors are true there, I think that is massively undervalued, and the fact that this will happen at a similar time as the Cybertruck is absolutely nuts. 2 new models from Tesla in such a small space of time. Okay, one is just a facelift, but it's looking pretty good and it comes with a new longer range battery. Then we have FS12. Sure, it has done nothing for the stock so far, but I'm sure eventually it will catch some wind and the AM movement and could potentially do a great deal for the stock price. These are all massive and all happening in the very near future. Then if something like Giva Mexico also breaks ground, I think all these events could send the stock flight. I'm hoping to see it at perhaps mid-300s, hopefully before the end of the year. Like I said, though, this is just for what's happening in Tesla. There are other factors at play, like a lot of people are still predicting a recession coming too. But that's all very hard to predict. But if Tesla does achieve these events, then I'm going to be very excited. Likely wants these things to happen too. As he said, he's going to start selling some more shares next year, and some of the rumors are the X needs more funding. And as I said, this was the short-term 6 months or so. But after that, Tesla really needs to start showing what they can do. We need to see some evidence. Somehow Tesla got away with not having to deliver anything all year, something that I was saying could happen. And then Elon announced it on the Q4 earnings call, saying that there will be very little ramping all year. 4680s won't ramp. Cybertruck will be delayed until the end of the year. FSD. Well, Elon's opinion on that is superfluous by this stage, And yet, despite Elon saying all this, the stock price rallied back. Then, investors, the market just hears what it wants to. This was a free year for Tesla. It was so safe to invest. With such low expectations for the year, yes, we've seen production increase. But it's mainly from Shanghai Steel, not much in the way of Berlin or Texas ramping. But like I said, it wasn't expected to so. There are a few big exciting events coming up, but after that, then Tesla really needs to start delivering next year, or the stock price will tank again. Investors are only so patient. Then on top of that, there'll always be some bad macro news at some point and some fat that often happens to be around a similar time, and shorts get in and market manipulation, and Tesla stock price gets depressingly low. Elon got a free pass this year aside from the Cybertruck launching, which still hasn't yet, but yes, very likely will my guess would be October. But we have to see it ramping well next year. It doesn't have to hit volume production, and might not despite Elon saying it will by the end of next year. But if it's even on a run rate of about 150,000 a year by the end of 2024, and that's probably good enough as long as it's still ramping at a reasonable rate. A lot of the ramping will have to do with cell supply though, and I do not hold my breath for Tesla having enough in-house. I think Panasonic will come and save the day sometime in mid-2024 if Tesla are lucky. Tesla do need to show their in-house cell production ramping next year, though if we don't hit a run rate of about 50 gigawatt hours a year by the end of next year for 4680s, and it's very disappointing and more unreliable targets from Elon. I'm not saying they won't hit that, I'm just saying that they really need to start showing some serious progress, and we're still getting told 50 year-over-year growth or 20 million units a year by 2030. These are Elon's latest numbers still, but the run rate Tesla was on by the end of 2022 is only about 10 less than what will be by the end of this year, and without a huge 4680 ramp, I don't see how they can beat 10 next year. Either at this rate, Mexico would be producing any significant number of cars next year. Either, which means it's all down to 4680 supply for the Cybertruck and Model I if we want to see any production increase. And what about energy? Many of the 70 investors' main hopes at the beginning of the year were that the Megapack factory would reach 40 giga-hours annually and have 50 margins. The community responded by saying, well, Megapacks just cut their prices too, so there go any massive margins. But we don't know what's really going on behind the scenes. There is evidence that Cal has a brand new factory that can supply the Model 3 Highland and Model Y Juniper with new, longer-range batteries for the rear-wheel drive versions. Then, those old lithium-ion batteries that are currently used in those models can be transferred to Megapack factories, which then increases the supply of Megapack suppliers, which lowers prices. Nevertheless, it's difficult to predict whether next year will be crucial, though Tesla needs to start proving they can return to this 50 year-over-year growth. Megapacks must significantly increase in price. The new Generation 3 vehicle must be unveiled, and Giga Mexico must make significant headway. In fact, the stock may reach all-time highs the next year if some of these events proceed as planned. If not, it may become choppy. Thank you, and please remember to subscribe and give us a thumbs up.